Odell Beckham Jr. was livid after the officiating in the Giants loss to the Steelers this past Sunday, and he made it known post-game. Now, ahead of the big NFC East clash with the Cowboys, he addressed the ref situation yet again.
It doesn't surprise me. Like I said, everybody knows what's going on the field. Everybody could see it. Stevie Wonder could see it. It is what it is. You can't do anything about it. There's no point. I don't even know why. I shouldn't even have brought it up because it's always a lose-lose situation, bringing something up. Either you're speaking out on it and now you're trying to defend yourself, or the other way around, you're complaining. So either way it goes, I should have probably never brought it up. It's really irrelevant. Nothing's going to change. No calls are going to be made because of what I say now. So you just got to keep playing. You know what you're going against. It's the Giants versus everybody, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Max, is it time to tell our boy Odell Beckham Kayate?
Odell, you just said I shouldn't have brought it up. It wasn't going to make any difference anyway. And in the previous breath, called the refs blind. Here's the thing about Odell Beckham. The answer, Molly, is yes, and Stephen A. is yes. He needs to shut up. And I'm not saying take the fuel away from whatever he needs to get himself amped up to play. He's got to be true to himself. But in terms of calling out the refs, shut all the way up. Odell, what are you doing? Stephen A., he's already, and we've been back and forth about this, he's the best receiver in football. And by the way, I think if you put everyone on a lie detector test, they would all say the same thing. Damn it, I hate him. But yeah, he's the best. I know, respect to Julio Jones and Antonio Brown, they're beasts, I get it. But I think Odell's the best. Can you imagine for a second if he shut up and just worried about balling instead of all the other stuff? And I don't just mean as it was a distraction to the team or whatever. He's not getting calls. He didn't get that one. When he asked the referee a question about it, ref told him to get out of his face. Odell, do you think you're going to get more or fewer calls when you call the refs blind? Smarten up. What are you doing? Already the best. If he just quieted down and maybe got a couple of those calls, he'd be even better. I don't know why he continues to do this.
I disagree with you. I don't mind him talking at all. I mind the temper tantrums. He doesn't need to be going to the sidelines and kicking stuff and throwing stuff and knocking the net into his head, and all of that other stuff. He doesn't need to be doing that. But him voicing his concern about unfair treatment, I really don't have a problem with it, Max, and I'll tell you why. Speaking to some folks from the league office over the last few months, one of the things they've religiously talked about is how they view all the calls, a lot of non-calls, and how the officials are critiqued every week, every single week. They go through every single game with a fine-tooth comb. They highlight what is made, they highlight what is missed, and the officials are judged accordingly. And it has some impact as to whether or not they'll be around in the future. So Odell Beckham Jr. bringing attention to this in a controlled way, in a controlled setting as well, I think is helpful. Because what it does is it raises the proverbial eyebrows of league officials who are going to go back to the tapes and view what he's talking about and come to a conclusion moving forward. That's what you have to do here. He doesn't need to be petulant. He doesn't need to be immature. He doesn't need to be creating a scene or anything like that. But sitting in his locker in a very controlled manner and expressing his dismay and concern over being out on that football field when he is specifically highlighting that rules are being broken according to what the NFL wants, what they say is legal and illegal, what they say is cool and not cool. I have no problem with it. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah, okay, fine, if he was doing it in a smart way, but do you think it's smart to insult the officials? The mature way to do it is say, something like, refs got a really tough job. I think they got that one wrong. I asked about it. I was told to get out of his face. So, I did. I hope going forward, whatever. There's a conciliatory way to express that, a mature way to express it, versus using it as an opening and the fact that, hey, I'm sitting at my locker and they're putting cameras and mics in my face. I'm just answering the question. Using that as an opportunity to take a sophomoric shot at the refs. Sophomoric, not because it expresses anger. Good for you. You should be angry for not getting the calls. But because you're shooting yourself in the foot, it's going to make it harder for you when you call them blind.
Yeah, but you didn't sit up there and talk about what he said. You said he should shut up. He shouldn't say anything. I'm saying to you, you don't insult the officials, and you don't draw a temper. You don't perform temper tantrums on the sideline. But there's absolutely nothing wrong in a mature and educated fashion highlighting the mistakes that the officials are making and highlighting how it's putting you in jeopardy.
That's what
he doesn't have to shut up. He just has to be smart about what he says.
What do you think I mean by shut up? That if they ask him a direct question, he says no comment? No, of course you have to answer the question.
Yeah,
but don't
and
insult
about the officials.
refs.
About the officials, that's exactly what I thought you were saying.
No,
but about the officials, that's exactly what I thought you were saying.
Do you think they got it right? Everyone knows how to do this. What, you got to go to a seminar on how to treat the media? Do you think they got it right? Refs got a tough job. I thought that was pass interference on me, and I hope that the league looks at it. Whatever. You can do it in a way that doesn't make it harder for you, because what it shows me in terms of the issue of maturity is that you don't want to postpone gratification, which is really the hallmark of maturity. He feels angry. He wants to express it right then because it feels good to him in the moment, without forethought about how that's going to affect him down the road. That is the definition of immaturity, and I would like him to respond maturely so that this transcendent talent at the position can stop this argument about who's better, him, Antonio Brown, or Julio Jones, and take his rightful place in the hierarchy of at least receivers in the NFL as the number one guy. By the time he's done, I believe we will recognize this as the Odell Beckham Jr. era for receivers, but that's not going to be so clear if he continues to shoot himself in the foot.
Question was whether or not he should shut up. I answered that he shouldn't. And I feel that way because I think the more he talks, the more it highlights what the NFL should do to hone in on these receivers. This dude is a superstar talent. He's legitimately box office. It might behoove the NFL to want to protect him instead of being arrogant enough to think people are going to watch their product anyway.
Hope so. I'm a Giants fan. I'd like to see them do well. As of this moment, I've played in as many playoff games as Odell Beckham Jr.
I told Odell and Victor Cruz last night at the game. They were at the Knicks game. First of all, New York Knicks, they're lucky to have those guys, because I couldn't believe they both still stayed at the game until its very end. I was shocked because they should have left like everybody else. But I told them, you know what? As much as I would love for them to beat the Cowboys now, I don't mind them losing to the Cowboys now and waiting until the playoffs. But they got to get there.
Stephen A., I know you hate Thursday night football, but we've got a good one tonight. The 9-3 Chiefs host the 10-2 Raiders in Kansas City. This game will get a long way toward deciding who wins the division. Right now, Kansas City is one game behind Oakland in the AFC West, but they already beat the Raiders this year at the Black Hole. We know Arrowhead's a tough place to play. Vegas sees Kansas City winning by 3. Max Kellerman, what do you see? Who wins tonight?
I think Kansas City. And I know the Raiders are a hot team right now, and I've picked against them occasionally this year and underestimated them for part of this year, and they've proven me wrong at times. But Kansas City is a tough team to play at Arrowhead, obviously. They've already beaten the Raiders earlier this season, and Stephen A., as hot as the Raiders are, the hottest team in the NFL during the regular season, you know who they are? Over the last 22 games, the Kansas City Chiefs, 19-3. I mean, Andy Reid is up to his old tricks. Wherever he goes, that team becomes a powerhouse, a juggernaut. And they're number one in takeaways, number one in turnover differential over that time, the things that actually decide football games. And you look at the team right now, it's quietly, arguably, the best team in football over the last season and a half. Kind of like the 49ers were a couple years ago, when, though they didn't win any Super Bowls, they were consistently at any given point arguably the best team in the league over a period of greater than a season or two. And who was their quarterback for the beginning of that? Alex Smith, the guy who's just not going to beat himself, not going to make mistakes, can run, all those things. On an Andy Reid team, the Chiefs, I know they're not perceived as hot as the Raiders right now, but over the last season and a half, they've been better than maybe anyone.
Well, they've been incredibly impressive. There's no doubt about that, and they should be favored. I understand that Arrowhead is a very, very difficult place to play. I wish I could have made it there. When I was in Kansas City, I had to give a speech a couple of months ago. They actually asked me to come back for this particular game, so I apologize for not being able to make it. Having said that, maybe it's a good idea that I don't, because I'm picking the Raiders to win tonight's game. It's on the road. It's in Arrowhead, but I think that I want to see the Raiders show up and validate the mustard that I've attributed to them. This is a team that got smacked around last time they met Kansas City. That was in Oakland. Spencer Ware, not Jamal Charles, who had actually played in that game before he went down, ultimately later in the season in injury. But Spencer Ware was in that game, rushed 24 times for about 131 yards. Carr was ultimately neutralized, only threw for about 225 yards. Threw an interception, had a couple of sacks against them, threw an interception. But more importantly, the Raiders had no running game whatsoever. Latavius Murray did not play in this particular game. He didn't play at all. So he's expected to play tonight, if I remember correctly. The bottom line is this. Amari Cooper was a stud. He had a big game against him. Crabtree's got to show up in here along with others. And I don't expect the Raiders defense to fold in this particular game. They were held scoreless as an offense in the second half against Kansas City on their own home turf. I don't think that will happen tonight. I think we'll see a more prolific Oakland Raiders offense. I think Kansas City will make some noise as well, but I anticipate it will be a nail-biter. I'm picking the Raiders to win this game 30-27.
Well, look, the Raiders have shown the ability to come back in games, and that's why Derek Carr is in the MVP conversation, because, as I said, he's like a puncher who can knock you out late in the game. But the fact is they have to come back. That means they are not as dominant throughout the course of the game as the Kansas City Chiefs, who simply don't have to come back on teams like that. You may say, well, Alex Smith isn't capable of doing that same sort of thing as Derek Carr, and fine, that's true. I mean, I think that's pretty obviously true. But he doesn't have to when he's playing on a better team and playing mistake-free football. I mean, that's how they're winning these games. And so I get the kind of sentimental attachment also to the Raiders. You know, the Raiders are one of those teams, and you see them in every sport at every level, Notre Dame in college football. When they're good, people wish that they are maybe better than they actually are because you want them to be. They're a national team. And maybe the Raiders are. I still think they're a year away. I see Khalil Mack has really not anything that he's doing. The way they're using him has exploited him to his best advantage. And so they are even a different team on defense. But I don't think that means they're better than the Kansas City Chiefs right now. And I wonder, not in the playoffs, I don't think Alex Smith, because of what I just discussed, is as good a playoff quarterback as some others. But in the regular season at Arrowhead, I wonder if there's a better team in football right now or at any point over the last couple seasons. I just think they're a little bit better and they're going to win at home.
Well, my position is clear. The Oakland Raiders, if they are what I've said they are throughout the season, then they should be able to win a game like tonight. You shouldn't get smacked around on your home turf by the Kansas City Chiefs 26-10 more than a month ago and then turn around, show up at Arrowhead Stadium and wet the bed. You should respond in kind. You're talking about being a champion. You want to be recognized as a championship contender. This is the kind of game you show up for, particularly if you're Derek Carr and you're an MVP candidate. You don't go scoreless in the second half. You don't sit up there and be impotent offensively. You've got to respond to the challenge. You've got to answer the bell. I'm not in any way saying that the Raiders are definitively better than the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm saying, because I know that Kansas City is playing phenomenal football, they're finding ways to win themselves. I am saying I believe in the Oakland Raiders. I believe in their offense. I believe in the noise that they can make. And because of that, I'm picking them to win a game like this. Kansas City is favored. They're on their home turf. It's a short week where I think both teams can end up
a little bit
displaying
shorter for the Raiders, actually.
And I'm going to roll with the Raiders.
Yeah, it's a little bit shorter by a couple hours for the Raiders, if that makes a difference, which on a short week, maybe it does. I tend to think it makes a marginal difference. Every minute counts on a short week. Number one, as I mentioned, in turnover differential. Number one in takeaways. Everything else is noise, really, in football. It all cancels out. And that usually determines the winner. And Kansas City Chiefs number one in that over the last 22 games, which is why they have the most wins over that time and the best winning percentage, obviously, over the same time. I think they're a better team. We'll see.
We'll see.
On paper, it may look that way, but I'm rolling with Stephen A. here on this one. I think the Raiders get it done tonight. We'll see. Arrowhead is tough, so you know what the guys are thinking, but we want to hear from
now
you.
I'm worried about my pick.
Why?
Now I'm worried about it.
Oh, why?
Because you just joined me. That's why, Molly. I mean, we know what happened to you last week, and I just don't know. I just don't know, Molly. I just don't know.
Agrees with you? You should feel good about yourself right now. You should feel more confident.
How are your Cardinals doing, by the way, with the Super Bowl?
Sorry, a lot of people thought the Cardinals had the best defense going into the season. Enough of you two.
About that.
We want to hear from you guys. I am done with both of them. Who do you think is going to win the huge AFC West showdown? Tell us on Twitter. We'll share those results a little later in the show.